Do you remember a celebrity who was here one day and next day he was gone? We are not talking about celebrities stepping away from the spotlight. We are going to talk about people who were here one day and gone the next, with no clear explanation, no closure. It's like they're stuck in some eerie mystery novel that never got finished. Amelia Earhart, aviation icon Amelia Earhart has disappeared while attempting to fly around the world. She was on the final leg of her historic journey, aiming to become the first woman to circumnavigate the globe by plane. Amelia, along with her navigator Fred Noonan, was en route to Howland Island in the Pacific when radio transmissions abruptly cut off. Her last known message indicated that she was running low on fuel and struggling to establish contact with ground crews.
We must be on you but cannot see you. Gas is running low. Been unable to reach you by radio. We are flying at 1,000 feet.
Moments later, all communication ceased. The search efforts were massive, but no wreckage was ever found. Some say she crashed and sank into the ocean. Others think she landed on an uninhabited island and lived out her days there. There are questions like, was she captured by the Japanese? There's even a theory that she changed her identity and lived in New Jersey. Richey Edwards. Richey Edwards, the guitarist and lyricist for the Manic Street Preachers, vanished on February 1st, 1995. He was last seen leaving a London hotel early in the morning, just before the band's U.S. tour. 2 weeks later, his car was found abandoned near the Severn Bridge, a place known for tragic endings, but Richey himself was never found. For years, fans and loved ones searched for answers. Some believed he took his own life, unable to escape his struggles. Others held on to hope, convinced he had started a new life somewhere far away. There were even reported sightings of him in India and the Canary Islands, but nothing was ever confirmed. In 2008, Richey was officially declared presumed dead. Yet for those who knew his music, his words and his pain, the mystery remains. Did he choose to disappear, or was he lost to the darkness he so often wrote about? No one will ever truly know. Jean Spangler. Jean Spangler's disappearance in 1949 remains one of Hollywood's most disturbing mysteries. A young actress and dancer, she was working hard to make a name for herself while raising her daughter, Christine. On October 7th, she told her family she was meeting her ex-husband about child support and then heading to a late-night film shoot. But Jean never returned home. 2 days later, her purse was discovered in Griffith Park with a chilling note inside. Can't wait any longer. Going to see Dr. Scott. It will work best this way while Mother is away. The message raised more questions than answers. Who was Dr. Scott?
And was Dr. Scott a registered physician in the city of Los Angeles that the LAPD could potentially locate?
And why was she being so secretive? Making things even stranger, no movie shoot had been scheduled that night, leaving investigators puzzled. Some believed Jean had been seeking an illegal abortion. Others pointed to the mysterious Kirk mentioned in her note, leading to speculation about actor Kirk Douglas, though he denied any connection. Jimmy Hoffa. Jimmy Hoffa's disappearance in 1975 remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in American history. As the powerful leader of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, he was both admired and feared. But on July 30th, Hoffa went to a Detroit restaurant for a meeting with 2 known mobsters and was never seen again. Despite massive investigations, Hoffa's fate remains unknown. The FBI believes he was abducted and murdered, but his body has never been found. Over the years, theories have run wild. Was he buried under Giants Stadium, cemented into a building's foundation? Or was he cremated, leaving no trace? Decades later, his disappearance is still unsolved. For the world, his vanishing remains an enigma that may never be solved. Madeleine McCann. On May 3, 2007, what was meant to be a peaceful family vacation in Praia da Luz, Portugal, turned into a nightmare. Just 3 years old, Madeleine vanished from her bed while her parents dined nearby, checking on their children throughout the night. But at 10 p.m., when her mother, Kate McCann, returned to the apartment, Madeleine was gone.
And as I rushed back into the children's bedroom, that was the point. And I guess it was chance that just happened to be a gust of wind, that suddenly the curtains that were closed over just...
The investigation that followed became one of the largest in history. At first, suspicion fell on the McCanns themselves, an accusation that they fought tirelessly to disprove. But then the case attention turned to the chilling possibility of abduction. Witnesses recalled seeing a man carrying a small child that night, but despite countless searches, leads, and theories, no one knows for sure what happened to Madeleine. Years have passed, but the questions remain. Was she taken? Is she still alive somewhere? For her parents, hope never fades. For the world, her case is a heartbreaking reminder of how, in an instant, a child can disappear without a trace. D.B. Cooper, not a celebrity, but the way he disappeared has made him a celebrity in many films and TV shows. D.B. Cooper's story is one of the greatest mysteries of all time. He was a legendary criminal. In 1971, he boarded a plane in Portland, Oregon to hijack it.
First of all, the flight configuration he'd requested would not allow for a non-stop flight to Mexico City. As such, Cooper proposed a refueling stop in Phoenix, Yuma, or Sacramento before
He looked like any other passenger, but once the plane was in the air, he handed a flight attendant a note. At first, she ignored it, thinking he was just flirting. But then he whispered, "Miss, you'd better read that. I have a bomb." Cooper calmly told the crew what he wanted: $200,000 in cash, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck ready when they landed in Seattle. The airline followed his demands, giving him the money and parachutes while letting the passengers go. Then he ordered the pilots to take off again, heading toward Mexico City. But mid-flight over Washington State, in the middle of the night, Cooper did something no one expected. He jumped out of the plane with a parachute and all the money. That was the last anyone ever saw of him. The FBI searched for years but never found Cooper or his body. Some of the ransom money turned up years later near the Columbia River, but it only added to the mystery. Did he survive? Did he disappear forever? No one knows for sure, and to this day, his identity and fate remain one of the greatest unsolved cases in history. Dorothy Arnold. Dorothy Arnold's disappearance was sad on so many levels. On December 12, 1910, the 25-year-old socialite left her wealthy family's Manhattan home for a routine shopping trip. She was an educated young woman with dreams of becoming a writer. That morning, she casually told her mother she was buying a dress for a party, but she never returned. Her day seemed completely normal. Witnesses saw her visit a bookstore, where she bought a book of essays, and then stop at a candy shop.
Then at Brentano's, a bookstore on 27th Street, where she bought a copy of Engaged Girl Sketches, a lightly humorous collection of short romantic stories.
But after that, she simply vanished into the crowded streets of New York City. At first, her family kept quiet, afraid of scandal. Instead of calling the police, they hired private detectives who even searched Europe, believing she might have run away. But no solid leads ever surfaced. Months later, when private investigations failed, the family finally involved the police. Despite widespread searches and media coverage, no real clues were ever found. Was she kidnapped? Did she start a new life? Or did something more sinister happen? Over a century later, Dorothy Arnold's fate remains unknown, making her one of history's most haunting missing person cases, the Sodder children. This story is one of the most haunting unsolved mysteries. It was Christmas Eve, 1945, in Fayetteville, West Virginia. The Sodder family, a large and loving household with 10 children, was settling in for the night. The kids were excited about the holidays and everything seemed perfectly normal. But shortly after midnight, a fire broke out, engulfing their home in flames. George and Jenny Sodder, the parents, managed to escape with 4 of their children. The other 5, Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty, were sleeping upstairs. George tried desperately to re-enter the burning house to save them, but everything went wrong. His ladder, which he always kept propped up against the house, had mysteriously vanished. He tried to use his truck to break a window and climb inside, but the truck wouldn't start, even though it had been working fine earlier. Every effort to save the children was blocked, almost as if it had been orchestrated.
Into George's room and shaking him awake, the shout went up all through the house. "Fire! Fire!" Stumbling out into the freezing night air, George and Jenny looked around to see far too few of their children.
When the fire finally burned out, there was another eerie twist. No remains of the children were found in the ashes. No bones, no traces, nothing. Experts later stated that even in the most intense fires, bones don't completely disintegrate. So, where were the children? The Sodders became convinced that the fire wasn't accidental. They believed their children had been kidnapped and that the fire was set as a distraction. Over the years, they received strange letters and sightings. One day, Jenny found a piece of a green rubber object near the site, which she believed could have been an incendiary device, adding to their suspicion of foul play. In another chilling twist, they received a photograph in the mail years later, allegedly showing one of the missing boys as an adult. The Sodders never stopped searching for their children. They even put up a billboard on a highway near their home, pleading for answers. It stayed up for decades, becoming a symbol of their tireless quest for the truth. But despite all their efforts, the mystery of what happened to the Sodder children remains unsolved. Glenn Miller. Glenn Miller and his tunes were everywhere in the 1930s and 40s, making him as famous as legends like Duke Ellington and Benny Goodman. But despite his success, his story took a sudden and mysterious turn. In the middle of World War II, at the height of his career, he simply vanished, leaving behind one of music history's greatest unsolved mysteries. On December 15, 1944, he boarded a small single-engine plane bound for Paris.
Major Glenn Miller, director of the U.S. Air Force Band, is missing on a flight from England to Paris, it was announced today.
He was set to perform for American troops stationed there, a mission he had done before. But this time, something went wrong. The plane took off from England, crossed the English Channel, and then there was nothing. Many believe the plane may have gone down due to bad weather, which was a common danger over the channel. Others have speculated about friendly fire accidents or even secret wartime missions. But with no wreckage, no bodies, and no answers, Glenn Miller's disappearance remains a chilling mystery that still haunts both the music world and history books to this day. Michael Rockefeller. Can you imagine being the son of one of the wealthiest families in the world? Michael Rockefeller had everything: money, fame, opportunity, and the chance to live a life of luxury. Michael could have lived the life of an elite socialite, attending fancy parties and making headlines in the society pages. But that wasn't enough for him, and so in the 1960s he decided to become an anthropologist. His passion for cultures led him to travel to some of the most remote parts of the world. One of his most cherished journeys took him to New Guinea. In 1961, he and Michael Rockefeller were on an expedition with a companion named Renee Wassing. They had been in the region for some time, documenting the lives of the Asmat people, a tribe known for their elaborate wood carvings and warrior culture. But during a routine canoe trip, something happened. On November 19th, Michael and Renee set out on a canoe along the Mamberamo River to visit another tribe, the Mogoi, about 60 miles away. They were going about the murky waters of the river when disaster struck. The canoe capsized, and the two men were thrown into the water. Renee managed to swim to shore, but Michael, according to Renee's account, continued to struggle in the water before being carried away by the current.
Afterwards, he spent 6 months in the army, and his family expected him to then take his place in the Rockefeller business empire.
Renee later claimed that Michael attempted to swim towards the shore, but was unable to make it. As night fell, and after hearing nothing from Michael, Renee made his way back to their base camp and alerted their guides. Incredibly, despite extensive search efforts by the Dutch authorities and other groups, Michael Rockefeller was never found. Bryson DeVon. In the mid-90s, Bryson DeVon was a star in the NBA, playing for teams like the Orlando Magic, Chicago Bulls, and Detroit Pistons. But despite his success, he was known for his free-spirited and unpredictable nature. Then in 2002, he disappeared without a trace. He didn't just retire from basketball, he vanished from the world entirely. Midsummer, Bryson set sail on a yacht named Hakuna Matata with his girlfriend Serena Carlin and his older brother Miles DeBoard. It was supposed to be a peaceful getaway, but something went wrong. When the boat was found in Tahiti, only Miles was left. He claimed that Serena had died in an accident, leading to a fight where Bryson was also killed. He said he had no choice but to dispose of their bodies at sea.
Back to the day of the game itself, and take notice of the player closest to Jordan, the one standing just to his right. That is Brian Williams.
Authorities never found Bryson or Serena, and Miles' story was full of blunders. Before police could press him for more details, Miles overdosed on insulin and died. With him went the truth of what really happened to Bryson DeVon, leaving behind one of the most chilling mysteries in sports history. Lars Mittank. Lars Mittank's disappearance in 2014 is one of the strangest unsolved cases in recent memory. The 28-year-old German man was on vacation in Bulgaria with friends when things took a bizarre turn.
Group of men who he thought were either Russian or locals, so Bulgarians, had attacked him, and he was convinced.
After an argument with his friends and a visit to a local clinic for an ear infection, his behavior changed. He became paranoid, telling his friends that someone was after him. On the day he was supposed to fly home, Lars was at Varna Airport when things got even weirder. Surveillance footage shows him acting nervous, looking over his shoulder, and pacing around. Then out of nowhere, he sprinted out of the airport, ran into the nearby woods, and was never seen again. There were extensive searches, but no trace of him has ever been found. Some believe he had a bad reaction to his medication or suffered a sudden mental health crisis. Others think something more sinister happened, like an abduction. Whatever the truth is, Lars Mittank's disappearance remains a chilling mystery that may never be solved. Jim Sullivan. Sullivan was a talented musician who had released a well-received album, UFO, but his sudden disappearance in March 1975 left people stunned. Sullivan had been traveling across the country, aiming to break into the Los Angeles music scene. He told his family he was going to meet a contact in the city, but after his car was found abandoned in the New Mexico desert, things went weird. The car was discovered with the keys in the ignition and his guitar still inside. What really raised eyebrows was the fact that the vehicle was parked on a remote road with no signs of struggle.
A singer-songwriter from Nebraska vanished into the New Mexico desert.
In the days leading up to his disappearance, Sullivan had reportedly mentioned strange experiences, including a vision of a UFO in the desert. Some people believe that he might have met with foul play, possibly connected to his music career or personal struggles. Others speculate that he was mentally unstable and wandered off into the desert, succumbing to the harsh conditions. Connie Converse. Connie was a singer-songwriter in the 1950s and 60s, often compared to Bob Dylan for her introspective and poetic lyrics. However, despite her talent, she never achieved the fame she deserved, and by the early 70s, her music career was effectively over. In August 1974, Connie left a letter for her family, telling them she was leaving without a trace to start fresh and that she didn't want to be found. She packed up her belongings and drove away from her home in New Jersey. No one ever saw her again.
Her family sought her in the whispers of the wind and the faces of passers-by, but she remained an enigma, a song with no end.
Her car was later found abandoned, but Connie herself was never located. There were no signs of foul play or a struggle, leading some to believe she simply disappeared to escape her life and start anew, perhaps even intentionally cutting ties with the world. Others suggest she may have suffered from depression or other mental health issues, which contributed to her decision to vanish. To this day, there has been no concrete explanation for Connie Converse's disappearance, and her music remains hauntingly underappreciated. Harold Holt. Holt has been the Prime Minister of Australia since 1966. His sudden disappearance while on a swim in the ocean near Cheviot Beach, Victoria, has been the subject of numerous theories and speculation. On December 17, 1967, Holt went for a swim in the surf, despite warnings about rough conditions. His companions, including his private secretary, were waiting for him on the shore, but Holt never returned. His clothes and belongings were found on the beach, and a search was immediately launched involving the military and Coast Guard. Despite a massive effort, no sign of Holt's body was ever discovered.
Member of the group started swimming around 12:15 p.m. According to his friends, Holt was seen going out into deeper and deeper water, and then all of a sudden...
Several theories have emerged to explain what happened. The most plausible is that Holt, a strong swimmer, was caught in a rip current and drowned, his body carried out to sea. However, other theories have been floated over the years. Some believe Holt was the victim of a political assassination, while others speculate he may have faked his death to escape public life. Ambrose Bierce. Bierce was famous for works like The Devil's Dictionary and An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge, as well as for his coverage of the American Civil War. However, in his later years, Bierce became increasingly disillusioned with life and the world around him. In 1913, at the age of 71, Bierce decided to travel to Mexico to witness the Mexican Revolution firsthand. hoping to write about the conflict. He left his home in Washington, D.C., and headed to the border town of Ciudad Juarez. The last letter Bierce wrote to his friends in the United States was filled with cryptic remarks, and in it, he mentioned he was heading to the front lines of the revolution. After that, Bierce was never heard from again.
Bierce documented the turmoil of the revolution in letters to his correspondents.
Several theories have been proposed to explain his disappearance. Some believe that he died in Mexico, either in combat or from the harsh conditions of the revolution. Others think he may have intentionally disappeared, seeking to end his life in a way that would be consistent with his cynical outlook on existence. Another theory suggests that Bierce was captured by Mexican rebels or soldiers, and his fate remains a tragic mystery. Sean Flynn. The son of Hollywood legend Errol Flynn, Sean was a talented journalist and photojournalist who became famous for his work covering the Vietnam War during the 1960s and 1970s. He was drawn to the war zones, not just as a reporter, but as someone who felt a deep connection to the stories there. In April 1970, while covering the war in Cambodia, Sean Flynn, along with his colleague, photographer Dana Stone, was captured by Khmer Rouge soldiers. They had been traveling on motorcycles when they were stopped by a group of armed soldiers. Their last known photographs in a report indicated that they were alive when taken, but they were never seen again. The circumstances surrounding their disappearance remain unclear. While there have been various reports and rumors over the years, no concrete evidence has surfaced regarding their fate. Some believe they were killed shortly after being captured, while others speculate that they were held in captivity for years, possibly even living under different identities. Azaria Chamberlain. The case of Azaria Chamberlain is one of the most infamous and tragic disappearances in Australian history. In August 1980, Azaria Chamberlain, a 9-week-old baby, was camping with her parents, Lindy and Michael Chamberlain, at Uluru in the Australian outback. The family had set up camp in the national park, a popular tourist destination, when an incident occurred that would change their lives forever. Lindy Chamberlain claimed that while she was inside the tent preparing dinner, she heard a noise and went outside to find that her baby daughter had been taken by a dingo, a wild dog native to the region. Lindy and Michael's story was initially met with sympathy, but as time went on, doubts began to emerge about Lindy's account. Police, prompted by growing suspicions, investigated the case thoroughly, eventually concluding that Lindy had murdered her daughter. They argued that the story about the dingo was a cover-up, and that Lindy had staged Azaria's death to hide her own actions. In 1982, Lindy Chamberlain was convicted of Azaria's murder and sentenced to life in prison.
Dingo's got the baby!
You can drink it.
However, a series of inconsistencies in the case led to public outcry, and over the years, the investigation was reopened. In 1987, new evidence emerged, particularly a critical discovery that supported the original theory that a dingo could have indeed taken Azaria. This led to Lindy's eventual release from prison, and in 1992, the Australian High Court quashed her conviction, acknowledging that there had been a miscarriage of justice.